This week on Lemon's Car Spotting.
Hey everybody, it is Eric and it is Nick, and we are going to talk about Lemon's Car Spotting, where you post on Instagram the cars you spot on the street with hashtag Lemon's Car Spotting.
And we're going to get started right off with, oh man, it's an RV enthusiast. This is an unusual combination of the Corvair-based truck, whatever you called that thing, and a cab-over slide-in camper. Now, how does this work? Doesn't this make like the engine right underneath the porta-poo situation? I've never seen this, but then again, you don't see a whole lot of Corvair trucks around. But assuming that this actually worked at some point, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I would imagine both airflow and serviceability of the engine might be slightly compromised with this. I might be wrong, but boy, that is an interesting pairing right there.
Oh man, it just, oh God, I hit the wrong button.
Yep.
Now it's just Eric Vision.
There we go.
We're going to leave that in.
Okay.
It's a rare opportunity that you can catch your bedroom on fire just by going up a hill. But this is your chance to do it. I say go for it.
Quality. Yep. Yeah, now we're talking. This is, of course, the Saturn Relay, which is the end of the line for General Motors minivans, along with the, oh man. So you know how there's the Nova with the Nova, Omega, Ventura, and Apollo. Uh-huh. At the same time, there was the, Relay, Uplander, Montana, and Terraza. The Rum Tea. Are you the Trum? There we go. Yeah. These all have the same 3.5 liter 60-degree V6, and is most famous in Lemons for donating engines to both Anton Levitt's Volvo PV544 with the Uplander swap, and there's a Buick Century, A-body Buick Century that races on the East Coast with the Terraza swap in it, which is how you win in Lemons, by the way.
It really is, because that motor, and I always mess up all the different, the GM.
Doesn't matter.
There's two different 60 degrees, right? And then the 90 degree. But yeah, the Anton motor is the final iteration that, like, the Uplander, it's like the 2006 Uplander was like 20 years of R&D on this motor. I think it's actually a 3.9 and has 240 horsepower and is push rod. And it's just an incredible combination for Lemons. And Anton made the smart move of sticking one first in a Cavalier convertible, actually first in a Cavalier wagon, then in a Cavalier convertible, and then in a Volvo PV544, because of course. And now he's got a car that is built on a Lemons budget because Uplander parts. It looks cool because 1960 Volvo, and it's fast because it's got 240 horsepower. I think some of them somehow had variable valve timing. It's not even a Lemons loophole. It's just an incredibly smart Lemons selection.
Yeah. By the way, race a Relay, because then you have all the storage space that comes with it too.
Indeed. Oh man, Joe Dirt Town. God, it's an El Camino with a camper shell. And what is happening? There's a blanket or what? No, it's like a big net. Fishing net.
It's like a cargo net.
Is that aesthetic, or is that needed to hold the stuff in?
Here's the thing is, when you put the camper top on, you usually use like C-clamps or something like that. This might just be how he holds the top on.
Oh, yeah, good point. Who needs a screwed down solution when you have the ease of installation and flexibility of a net?
Yeah. That looks like webbing from like a cargo Airbus or something.
Yeah. I was thinking it looks like the jute decoration that you'll find in like a pirate themed family restaurant.
Oh yeah, too. Yeah, good point. Yeah.
Pretty sweet.
Oh baby, I know what this is, and it's not immediately obvious what it is if you don't know. But yeah, this is a Mercury Tracer.
Yep.
Now most people, Jesus Christ, I can't even say that anymore. I can't say most people know the Mercury Tracer. All right, so the Mercury Tracer that some people know is the same as a Ford Escort. This came for a couple years before that, and it was different from the Ford Escort of the time. It's basically a Mazda 323 with like the base model engine. It's like 80 horsepower, 4-door hatchback. We have had one of these in the 24 Hours of Lemons. Our good friend and frequent Lemons car spotter, Keith Kemp, raced one of these at his first race with an automatic. It was ungodly slow. And it blew up, and they sent it to the junkyard immediately and built a Ford Escort. But yeah, in theory, it has all of the same stuff that 323 and the Protege has. Suspension-wise, you could put all of the good, quote unquote, good Escort GT and MX3 stuff on it and put a good motor in it. Kind of would be a great starter Lemons car, actually. Start with it with the base engine. When you blow that up, make incremental improvements. But yeah. Weird, anachronistic, forgotten American import, captive import, much like the Mercury Capri at the same time was also built on the same chassis.
I would just love to be in the boardroom theater for this one because you had the Escort then.
Yeah.
And you also had Mercury.
Yeah, the links.
Somehow the decision was made not to rebadge the Escort, which of course they did later, like immediately after this, and instead say, you know what, we're going to do captive import and make a Mercury badged Mazda instead. What is the logic that results in that?
No, I mean, that's the thing. You talk about Mercury at the time. They had the Capri as the convertible. They had the Lynx, which was the Escort at the time.
That's right. They did have the Escort.
They had the Topaz, which was the bridge segment between the Sable and the Grand Marquis was much bigger. There's no point to this. I
forgot that they also had the Lynx. So you could buy this or a Lynx. Okay, so a couple of weeks ago on this program, we had a guy who was a salesman and remembered selling 79 Mitsubishi Colt wagons new. I want to know the person who worked in a Mercury dealership in 1991 or 1987 or whatever this was and had to explain to a human customer why they should buy a Lynx versus a Tracer or vice versa. I mean, how would you know? I mean, if that were to happen today, you'd go down a forum rabbit hole and, after 500 comments about motor oil and just, people being racist, which is how automotive forums work, you would find information and you would learn that one's an Escort, that one's a Mazda. Back then, you had no way of knowing. So how did this happen? We need to know. Post in the comments. All right. Next up. Enough of that captive import. We're going with a real American icon.
Yeah. Oh, man.
This is a Lincoln Mark whatever. 5, 4. I don't know, but boy. Wow. I mean, this is a car clearly born of 70s thinking, 70s aesthetics, and 70s drug intake, but was actually sold well into the 80s. And I kind of want to say that this is one of those, that this is like well into, this is like a couple of years away from being able to buy a Lexus SC400 that ostensibly competes in the same market segment. And imagine if those were your two choices. Stylistically, between the epitome of 90s design in the Lexus and the epitome of 70s design in the Lincoln that you could almost buy in the same year.
Yeah. What this photo doesn't show very well is how absolutely massive this car is. These were the last Lincolns before they downsized, I think think 79 was the last year of these, and they're like 22 feet long. It's insane how big these cars are. The overhang on the rear is as long as the overhang on the front, and you can tell that it is a lot of overhang on the front.
Yeah.
We had one of these on a Lemons Rally, and it was what was it? It was like the Centenary Edition or something stupid. And the fake Continental kit cover on the back was padded vinyl on the outside of the car. It was the most over-the-top option I've ever seen in my entire life. It was also the most expensive car you could buy in the United States at that time. That wasn't like specialty. So.
Right.
From one of the major manufacturers.
Speaking of special editions, I was just reading the caption, and it says, "When have you seen an Emilio Pucci Lincoln Mark V?" And we have talked a lot. Judge Phil is actually the real connoisseurs of weird special editions that were made to sound upscale and are either not upscale or just confusing. The one I associate with this era is Bill Blass. Yeah. Which, and there might have been a Louis Vuitton. The thing about Louis Vuitton is like, okay, I've heard of Louis Vuitton. I have not so much heard of Bill Blass, and maybe that's more of a commentary about me. I know a couple of years ago they had the John Varvatos Chrysler 300, and either I'm just not that fashionable. I know I'm not that fashionable, or John Varvatos isn't really as high society as Chrysler thinks he is. In any case, I had to look it up. Like, who the hell is John Varvatos? And along those lines, who the hell is Emilio Pucci?
Who can say, man? It's no Oleg Cassini Matador. I'll say that.
All right. Last car of the week.
Oh, Jesus. These are, I will always laugh at these cars. And it's not even a truck. You can't call this a truck. That's not. I'm sure it's categorized as one. No one has ever used one of these as a truck. Like, it has never carried bags of mulch. That has never happened with a Chrysler SSR or Chevy SSR. Sorry, don't mean to disparage Chrysler like that. Was this penned by the same guy who did the PT Cruiser?
Sure, I don't know.
It has to be.
What was happening where, like, the early 2000s, like, you had the PT Cruiser, which I assume was the first. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. And then, of course, General Motors, in typical General Motors fashion, had to, like, wait 3 years until the PT Cruiser wasn't cool, and then come out with this and the SS or the HHR.
Yeah.
This being the SSR. Actually, on that note, I was once on a press trip in Florida. We were going to the Sebring race. It was right around the time the SSR had come out. We're talking about SSRs. In my mind, I'm thinking that they're talking about HHRs. And so I said, oh, yeah, no, man, back home, California, those things are everywhere. Like, there's SSRs on every corner. And I was thinking HHR. And then they're like, no way. Really? Like, yeah, man, like, my neighbor's got an SSR. And I was like, finally, like, wait, which one is the PT Cruiser that was late to the party, and which one is the weird dad retro truck that's not really a truck that sort of makes the 2004 Thunderbird look cool? They were like, yeah, the second one is the SSR, and the PT Cruiser one is the HHR. I was like, okay. Forget everything I just said, or just replace everything every time I said SSR with HHR, because that's what I meant. Anyway, it was a confusing time.
Yeah, confusing times. I got nothing to add. Well, I do have one little nugget of fact. Is you look at one of these, you blow it up just on the screen. It's worth examining, and it's the size. It's smaller than the full-size pickup truck behind it. It is slightly bigger than a Ford Focus. We have a 4,200-pound weight limit. This is well over it. It's like 4,700 pounds or something. Like, holy crap. Yeah, there you go.
Now, just one last, I'm going to end on a positive note because, making fun of General Motors isn't something that we enjoy doing. This car, of course, had, I think, two versions of the LSVA, maybe a 5.3, and then I think some of them had an LS2, like a 6-liter LS2, or even was that a
6.2, I think.
6.2, which is that even an LS3? I don't know. Point being, the LS is one of the greatest things, if not the greatest thing General Motors has ever created. They were just, searching for a good car to put it in. And of course, people on the internet solved that problem by putting them in BMW E46s. It's like they did what General Motors was never able to do. But in any case, I will say that opposed to a PT Cruiser, opposed to an HHR, if you have one of these, at least you've got an LS to drive around in, and that's never a bad thing.
Yeah, 100%. Nick, I think you drew the hooptiest.
Okay, I've got the hooptiest. Look at my list. Let's see. Well, I think a very hoopty experience in life. Just imagine yourself driving down the highway. Everything's great. Then you start going up a slight incline. Your vehicle is maybe a little underpowered for the task. And then there's a bit of an airflow problem. Next thing you know, your toilet catches on fire. Yeah. And that's what would happen if you were driving a Corvair truck with a slide-in camper on the back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a very hoopty experience.
Yeah. No notes. Yeah. The caption says 80 horsepower, which is going to be really great going up a hill, going out of LA or wherever. I assume this, Southern California. Yeah, boy, no steep roads leaving the Los Angeles metropolitan area whatsoever. Yeah, as far as Lemon's builds go, this would be great to see on a racetrack. Like, absolutely slam dunk. You would have to do like 9 laps to win an IOE with it. That said, boy, I would question your sanity and also the safety requirements. Building one of these would be pretty challenging as a forward control vehicle.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with, I'm torn here, and you're going to have to help me out, Nick. Do we want to see a Saturn Relay, or do we want to see another Mercury Tracer in Lemons? I think it's kind of a tie. I mean, it's pretty tough to choose that. So
I'm going with the Saturn Relay, right. Only because the Mercury Tracer has almost too much potential to be a good car.
That's fair.
And, in our masochistic way, as the people that are observing Lemons from a relatively safe distance, in other words, when something totally goes south, we can just go over there and video you and put you on the YouTube wrap up. Yeah. So the fact that we don't have to actually deal with these problems always makes me lean towards something that's more likely to have problems. And I think in that case is going to be a Saturn more than a Mazda.
Yeah. And like I said, the real upside of any minivan is that you have so much room to store all of your crap for the race weekend. Just huck it in there. And then you get home from the race weekend, you take your race suit out so it doesn't mold, and you probably the cover on your race seat, and then you just throw everything else in there and you leave it like a storage locker. Boom, done.
Done.
There you go. Yep. IOE contender. Great way to end Lemon's car spotting this week. We'll see you guys next week right here.
Yeah, man. It's totally a Sears Tough Shed and race car all in one.
There's your theme too.